Well, I tell you, when your title is executive director of the agency that's in charge of ending homelessness for the region, most room says, man, I'm glad that's not my job. Well, I am glad it's my job. You know, homelessness is an interesting topic. It touches everyone, and everyone has a very strong reaction to it. It's a visceral reaction. Some get angry. They will use names like bum to dehumanize the person so they can feel okay about the emotion that was emitted when they saw that individual. Others are very compassionate and have an unconditional love for that population. So how do we find solutions? And ultimately, that's the goal. Homelessness is a destination. It's not a people. It's not a culture that they came from. It's where they ended up based on sometimes it's choices, sometimes it's systems of care that failed, sometimes it's simply geography, because at its base, homelessness is detachment from support systems. So I've got in Sacramento about 2,500 individuals that we estimate on any given night experiencing a state of homelessness. Over the course of that year, it's probably closer to 4,000, 5,000. LA, 60,000, San Diego, 9,000. It's a lot of people. So we need a process that allows us to work with individuals. As I mentioned, they're individuals that we're working with, to move them efficiently through a system and then provide them the care and housing that they need. Some models that I look at are hospitals. Would you ever run a hospital without an emergency room or a triage nurse? What would that look like? So I have a thing, it hurts when I do that. I'm going to go to the hospital, I'm going to find a department that does that. I'm knocking on doors, I'm getting on lists. It could be a heart thing, it's close to the heart. It's near the elbow, I'll go to that department. That would be insanity. I mean, it's hard enough getting into your doctor. So when we look at this population and we look at all the needs of individuals, we have to have a system that addresses individuals getting into complex systems. Now we mentioned that these are folks that need to have a one-on-one connection. It takes a person sometimes to go and meet the other person in the place that they are. Individuals of highest function will go to locations, they'll figure out systems, they'll call numbers and make meetings, but there are those that have lost hope in that system. There are those whose mental health condition would preclude them from making those choices and ability to follow up or physical health decisions. So we need to have a team that goes out and meets them. Currently, we're looking at these eddies, I call them, where you find recidivism in hospitals, jails, courts. And right now, the county, through an organization called TLCS, will have over 22 in-reach workers, I'll call them. They'll be stationed at jails and hospitals and courts. And they'll be embedded with law enforcement. These are individuals that will start to make direct contact and deal with people on a human level. And then we have, what's interesting is business districts. I started an outreach program for the Downtown Sacramento Partnership in 2006, and today, that organization, the River District, Midtown, Sutter, the county, the city, and RT is considering bringing on outreach workers that they'll contract through our office and will deploy throughout the county and city. So now we have that contact in the field, but what are we doing with this, folks? Now, do I just have someone to shepherd them to all the same front doors I just described? Probably not your most efficient use of time. Best practice nationally is to create a coordinated entry system. And this is where I call it the eHarmony.com of homeless housing. So in eHarmony, I like the model. It takes people that want to fall in love, but they don't want to date everyone. And they want everybody else to fill out a survey that gives a good match for them. I like that model. So we have a model that's called the VI-SPDAT. I'm not going to go into exactly the acronym. That's a vulnerability index. What we want to do is prioritize people based on their needs. And so this is a process where we now have the technology. We're in the field via iPad, and these outreach workers are interviewing people, whether it's next to the river, downtown, at Loaves and Fishes, so that we can look at their needs. That tool tells us a spectrum of where they are matched. So at the end of this conversation is a series of housing options and service types. Under the Housing First model, we want to have the lightest touch of service at the discretion of the person we're trying to serve in the housing that they live in. The Housing First is simply to not have the fear of what's going to happen to me tonight, the fear of what am I going to eat tomorrow. That's to alleviate that moment where you can start to think about choices so that those services that are presented to you start to make sense. So as we bring folks in, I have a community queue. I can look at where people are placed, and what we're working on now is matching that to the services. So as there's an availability within the service, they say there's an availability, it comes right up onto the queue. So that I can now start to match the need of the person, the best prescribed match based on the eligibility, and the availability within that system. Now, all of that's good and well. So I spent a few $1 million, we hired a bunch of people, I got systems in place, I got cops talking to social workers, I got business district there at the table, I have electeds buying into this thing. It's a big kumbaya moment, we're all giving hugs. It comes down to that person's choice, right? It's that person's choice. So in that moment, if that person says, I'm not ready, we don't walk away. We just ask that question again and create more relationship. Because ultimately it comes down to individuals choosing to do what they feel best is for themselves, and us as a system to provide the opportunities for them to succeed. And success is a tricky word, right? There was a day when for us success meant, I say the global us, anybody working in social service, outreach to individuals experiencing homelessness, was your success is going to match the model that we created because we think that's the best human, and you're going to earn that house. Because as a business person, I'm like, you better earn that house. You know how much you cost me? Out in front of my place, I'm losing business, and I worked hard. I worked hard in school. I worked hard to get the job I have. And it doesn't appear to me that you have. And so you need to pay a little penance and do what you need to do, and then we're going to allow you to get a house. There were overtones of that historically. You can imagine if you are a person that's chronically ill, you're living in downtown, and I offer you, hey, I'm going to get you into a program. I'll be like, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not doing that. Today, I have issues today I need to deal with. They're immediate issues. I don't have time to do this program. So we offer that housing first, bring the appropriate match of services. This is a model that has worked best for our most chronically ill to access services. The issue of not giving up is something systemically that you will see is just paramount. And so we have this coordinated entry, we have the contact, but we have to have this last piece. And this is a piece that I don't see often, but we're going to have in our continuum. And it's a coordinated exit. It's the thought from the moment I contact you that you too can have independence. And there are some individuals that we look at and think, there is no way this individual, a day in their life is going to work. And I'll tell you right now, I've met those individuals at the other side of this conversation, and they do have successful lives. Their success may not be what we thought we wanted to prescribe for them. Sometimes it will be a transition into that job and independence. Sometimes it's going to be that they move in with roommates. Well, go figure, humans that can live as roommates. It happens all the time. And we also have moments where individuals live in permanent supportive housing because of their lives or the damage that they have through addiction or sometimes mental health issues, age. They cannot transition out. Permanent supportive is where they're going to live. And so in those environments, that is a success. Late stage alcoholics, I had a gentleman, Mark Davis. I worked in Downtown Partnership for 18 years. Mark was drunk and homeless the day I met him. Mark was drunk and homeless the day I left. The exception being, we got him into it's called a wet house where he could still drink, but he was no longer being arrested. He wasn't going to the emergency room. He was getting primary care. And surprise, he found family in Redding, and that's where he went, and that's where he passed away. So for Mark, that was success. For us as a community, we need to have a system that's efficient, it meets people where they are, and it holds us accountable as a continuum to get folks off of the street. We deserve it as a community, and they deserve it as individuals.